Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, your life is stuck in an endless cycle of repetition? That even with plans, dreams, and promises of change, everything ends up staying the same? The truth is, transformation doesn't happen just because we want it to. It requires different attitudes, daily actions, and, above all, a real commitment to starting over. The problem is, no one teaches us how to deal with the difficulties of this process. We're told that all we need is positive thinking, big goals, and the will to move forward. But reality is much more complex. Doubts arise, routines become exhausting, and self-sabotage sneaks in when we least expect it. The secret isn't in drastic changes but in the sum of small, consistent actions that, day by day, pave the way for a new path. What few people talk about is that life doesn't transform in an instant. There are no magic formulas, but there are principles that, when applied, make change inevitable. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about here. We'll explore what really holds you back and how you can, in a practical and consistent way, flip the switch once and for all. So, if you're tired of frustrating attempts and truly want to understand what it takes to change, keep reading. The answers you're looking for might be hidden in the smallest details, and from now on, you'll never overlook them again. To live something new, you must be willing to let go of the old, and that includes not just habits, but also beliefs, fears, and excuses we unknowingly carry. Change requires a shift in attitude because there's no point in expecting life to bring us new opportunities if we keep acting the same way. It's like wanting to reach a new destination without changing the route. Small daily decisions are the key to transformation, and more often than not, the biggest change starts with how we see ourselves. Starting over is harder than simply starting because it carries the weight of what we've already been through. The fear of making the same mistakes, the scars of past failures, and lingering insecurity make us hesitate. But the truth is, starting over is not a sign of weakness, it's an act of courage. Those who refuse to embrace new beginnings condemn themselves to a stagnant life, trapped in the past. Something didn't work out, great. That just means you now have more experience to try again in a different way. New beginnings don't just happen on their own. They demand action, consistency, and resistance to our own excuses. How many times have we postponed changes because it's not the right time? The truth is, there's never a perfect moment. Waiting until you feel 100% ready is just another trick of self-sabotage. The first step will always be uncomfortable, but without it, you'll never move forward. It's better to take an imperfect step than to stay stuck in the same place. Life is in a constant state of metamorphosis, and you are part of this process. The issue isn't change itself, but the resistance to it. If we see transformation as a burden, it will feel difficult and painful. But if we understand that each new beginning is another opportunity, we learn to embrace change with lightness and purpose. So, what do you need to start over today? Doubt isn't always the enemy. In fact, it can be one of the greatest allies of change. Those who never question anything remain trapped in certainties that don't always reflect reality. It's like navigating with an outdated map, ignoring the fact that the roads have changed. When you allow yourself to doubt, you create space to see new possibilities, adjust your path, and grow. The problem isn't doubt itself, but how you use it as an excuse to remain stagnant or as a catalyst for evolution. Being absolutely certain about everything can be dangerous. When we believe we already know enough, we stop learning. The biggest transformations happen when we dare to question what seemed obvious. Think about the times in your life when you grew the most. I bet they were the moments when you had to step out of your comfort zone and face uncertainty. Growth requires the courage to ask, what if there's a better way? What else can I learn? On the other hand, doubt can become paralyzing if we don't know how to handle it. The fear of making the wrong choice often stops us from making any choice at all. But the truth is, no one has all the answers before they start. The key is learning to live with uncertainty and taking action anyway. Doubt just enough to reflect, but not so much that you remain stuck in indecision. Action, even with doubt, is what brings clarity. Used wisely, doubt keeps us in motion. It pushes us to seek knowledge, test new ideas, and evolve. The problem isn't in questioning, it's in avoiding the responsibility of choosing. So next time you feel uncertain, ask yourself, is this doubt helping me grow, or is it holding me back? The answer might be exactly what you need to take your next step. No matter how much we try to avoid the topic, there is one undeniable truth: death comes for everyone. We shy away from thinking about it, but in reality, this awareness should motivate us to live better. Knowing that our time is limited reminds us that every day matters. The problem is that many people live as if they were eternal, postponing dreams, delaying decisions, and pushing off to tomorrow what should be a priority today. But what if tomorrow never comes? On the other hand, there is one certainty that brings comfort in the face of this reality: God's love is unconditional. Unlike what many believe, this love doesn't need to be earned, it already exists, regardless of our mistakes or successes. This means that even in the face of difficulties, we are never alone. This certainty doesn't eliminate challenges, but it gives us the strength to face them with courage and purpose. After all, if there's a greater plan behind everything, why live in fear? When we truly understand these two certainties, death and the love of God, our entire perspective on life shifts. Instead of just existing, we begin to seek meaning. What will we leave behind when we're gone? How are we making the most of the present? Death is not the end, it's a reminder that we need to live with intention. And God's love is the guarantee that every step of the way, we have a greater purpose guiding us. If life is fleeting, then wasting it on fear, pride, or endless postponements makes no sense. Every day is a new opportunity to make it count. So, ask yourself, if today were your last day, would you be satisfied with the way you've lived? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to change a few things. Because while death is certain, how we choose to live until then is entirely in our hands. Happiness is a slippery concept. Everyone has their own definition. For some, it's tied to professional success. For others, it's about freedom or found in simple moments with loved ones. The problem is that too often, we chase happiness as if it were a final destination, something we reach and never lose. But does it really work that way? If it were that simple, why do so many people feel unfulfilled even after achieving what they once dreamed of? Philosopher Blaise Pascal once said that even those who take their own lives are, in some way, seeking happiness. It sounds contradictory, but it makes sense. All of us are trying to escape pain and find a state of fulfillment. The problem is that we often look for it in the wrong places. We convince ourselves that we'll be happy when something happens, when we have more money, when we find the right person, when everything is perfect. And in this endless waiting, life passes us by. Happiness isn't something you achieve by chasing it, it's the result of living a meaningful life. Have you ever noticed that the happiest moments usually happen spontaneously? They're the unexpected coffee breaks, the deep conversations, the small gestures that touch the heart. The secret isn't to hunt down happiness, but to build a life filled with habits, relationships, and choices that give it purpose. The more meaning you bring into your daily routine, the happier you'll become without having to run after it. So instead of asking, what would make me happy? Try a different question: what makes my life meaningful? Happiness isn't a trophy waiting at the end of the journey, it's found in the details, in the path you choose to walk. Focus on building a life with purpose, and you'll realize that happiness was there all along. In theory, everything sounds simple. There are thousands of books, courses, and self-proclaimed gurus promising ready-made formulas for success, happiness, and personal transformation. But in practice, life doesn't follow a predictable script. Not everything that sounds beautiful actually works in the real world. If it were that easy, we would all just follow a manual and instantly become successful and fulfilled. The problem is that many of these theories ignore the complexity of life and the individuality of each person. How many times have you tried to apply a seemingly foolproof piece of advice, only to find that it didn't work? That's because life isn't a mathematical equation. What works for one person may not work for another. Some claim that waking up at 5 a.m. is the key to success, but what about those who work night shifts? Others insist that all you need is to think positive to change your life, but what about those facing real, structural challenges? Not everything fits neatly into a universal formula. The real danger is blindly believing in magic solutions. Some ideas, when misapplied, can lead to more frustration than progress. For example, chasing unrealistic goals without considering your own reality can lead to burnout and self-sabotage. Instead of looking for prepackaged answers, the best approach is to test, adapt, and create a path that makes sense for you. Learning through experience is far more valuable than simply following what others say. That doesn't mean theory is useless, on the contrary. Knowledge is essential. But the difference between those who grow and those who get stuck is the ability to filter and apply only what truly works. Real life demands flexibility, experimentation, and constant adjustments. Instead of searching for definitive answers, why not test what works for you and build your own formula? We live in a world full of tempting promises and ideas that, at first glance, seem amazing. But is everything that shines truly gold? Filtering what enters our minds and hearts is essential. Just as we protect our homes from intruders, we need to guard our thoughts against influences that steer us away from what truly matters. After all, whoever controls your heart controls your life. Proverbs 4:23 warns us above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. But how do we apply this in practice? A good starting point is to be mindful of what you're focusing on. What kind of content do you consume daily? Who do you spend the most time with? What thoughts dominate your mind? Small details, when overlooked, can shape your worldview without you even realizing it. Many people fall into the trap of being enchanted by false promises. It's easy to believe in shortcuts to success, instant solutions to problems, or even relationships and friendships that seem perfect but aren't. When we don't learn to filter what we allow into our hearts, we risk getting hurt, disappointed, and losing sight of what really matters. Protecting your heart doesn't mean shutting yourself off from the world, it means learning to discern what's truly valuable. Don't absorb everything you hear and don't follow any path blindly. Ask yourself, does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does it bring me closer to the life I want or push me further away? The answer might be the guide you need to live with more wisdom and purpose. Big changes don't happen overnight, they are the result of small, repeated actions over time. It's easy to believe we need some grand moment of transformation to change our lives, but the truth is, success is built in the details. A conversation, a habit, a seemingly insignificant choice, any of these can shift your entire path. The question is, are you paying attention to these details? The danger of grand goals is that they can feel so overwhelming that they paralyze us. When we set massive objectives without a clear plan, self-sabotage kicks in. How many times have you said, I'm going to change completely, only to fall back into old habits days later? That's because drastic changes are difficult to sustain. Instead, small, consistent steps make all the difference. Reading 5 pages a day, swapping 10 minutes of social media for learning, going to bed 30 minutes earlier, these little shifts add up to big results. Imagine an airplane that adjusts its route by just 1 degree. At first, the difference seems insignificant, but over time, the final destination changes completely. The same happens in our lives. Small habits build great transformations, and small neglects can lead us astray. The problem is, we often only realize the impact of our choices when we're already far off course. So instead of waiting for a major turning point, start now with what you have. Don't underestimate the power of small daily actions. The secret lies in consistency, not in momentary intensity. Ask yourself, what small habits can I improve today? The answer might be the beginning of a transformation greater than you can imagine. Many people believe that life is defined by big moments, that diploma earned, that long-awaited promotion, that dream wedding. But in reality, what truly builds our story are the small, everyday actions. Becoming a better person, achieving success, or having a healthy relationship doesn't depend on one single milestone but on the accumulation of decisions we make daily. Think about the relationship between parents and children. An expensive birthday gift doesn't replace daily presence. A child doesn't feel loved just because they receive an incredible toy, but because they experience care, attention, and affection over time. The same applies to every area of life. What truly matters isn't one grand, isolated gesture, but the consistency of small, meaningful actions. The great trap is believing that extraordinary moments can make up for everyday neglect. Many people wait for a big day to start acting, when they have more money, when the perfect opportunity arises, when everything falls into place. But what if that day never comes? The truth is, your future is being built right now, in the choices you make even when no one is watching. So instead of waiting for a major breakthrough, why not start valuing the small actions that shape your journey? Every choice, no matter how small, is contributing to who you are becoming. What you do repeatedly defines who you are. So, what habits and attitudes have been shaping your life? Our character isn't shaped by one big decision, but by the sum of small choices we make every day. What we do consistently defines who we are. Honesty, discipline, generosity, and responsibility aren't built through a single act but through the repetition of these values over time. The problem is, many people don't realize how small, ignored failures can compromise their entire journey. A seemingly insignificant misstep today can turn into a major problem tomorrow. It's like a ship that drifts just a few inches off course after weeks at sea. It ends up miles away from its intended destination. The same happens in life. Small lapses like procrastinating important tasks, neglecting commitments, or giving in to excuses accumulate until one day we find ourselves lost, wondering how we got there. On the other hand, repeating good actions leads to extraordinary results. An athlete doesn't become a champion overnight, a writer doesn't publish a bestseller without years of practice, and no one builds a solid relationship without continuous effort. Character is formed through the invisible choices we make every day, the ones we stick to even when no one is watching. If small failures can derail your journey, small virtues can transform it. So instead of waiting for a drastic change, start by correcting what seems insignificant. The big question is, are your daily actions bringing you closer to or further from the life you want? Because in the end, we are the result of what we do repeatedly. The life you want won't be built in a single moment, it's being shaped right now, in the details of your everyday actions. You can keep waiting for change to happen, or you can take control and start making it happen. Have you ever stopped to think about how many opportunities you've lost due to fear, procrastination, or doubt? What if, instead of looking for a huge leap, you focused on the small actions that truly make a difference? What can you do today, right now, to take the first step toward transformation? It could be something simply more conscious decision, a habit that needs adjusting, a thought that needs questioning. Real change isn't found in grand promises but in the commitment to live each day differently. If this content made you reflect, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And to keep receiving valuable insights on personal growth, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Let's turn theory into reality and build a life filled with meaning, one step at a time. The choice is yours.